New York's iconic Waldorf Astoria was purchased by a Chinese company in 2014 for nearly $2 billion. After the acquisition, President Obama stopped staying here due to security concerns, breaking with the decades-long tradition of U.S. presidents staying here during their trips to New York. The move was highly symbolic of Chinese money flowing into the U.S.
Billions of dollars flow into the U.S. from China in the form of investments every year, and in some parts of New York City, it's widespread. Chinese investments include 28 Liberty Street, Baccarat Hotel, and a stake in the General Motors building.
Bank of China agreed to pay nearly $600 million to buy this Midtown skyscraper in 2014.
A big name gaining attention for her investments is real estate mogul Zhang Xin.
She's a Chinese billionaire whose family acquired a 49% stake in this building, Park Avenue Plaza, back in 2011.
And she came together with investors to buy 40% of General Motors building in 2013. And then there's a company called H&A Group. It poured billions of dollars into properties in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Minneapolis, and more. But it's not just real estate.
In 2012, Chinese conglomerate Dalian Wanda Group purchased AMC. The $2.6 billion deal would make it the world's largest cinema chain.
Chinese investors also bought a $3.5 billion stake in Legendary Entertainment, the company behind Matt Damon's Great Wall movie. In 2016, Chinese investment into the U.S. hit a high.
The next year, though, it declined significantly, reversing the trend.
Just take a look at the China Investment Monitor, which tracks Chinese direct investment into the United States. The figures have generally been on an upward trend since the tracker was launched in 2000, peaking at nearly $46 billion in 2016. Then, investments dropped off. So why the sudden decline? Well, to understand that, we have to go back to the original surge. You see, Chinese people and businesses were growing wealthier, but they were worried about China's explosive growth slowing. After all, their holdings are priced in the yuan, and a drop in the yuan against other currencies would mean the value of their assets goes down. So mainland companies started buying up assets in other countries like the US. It was their way of diversifying their portfolios, hedging their bets against a downturn at home. But all of that money moving from Chinese bank accounts into foreign real estate and companies made Beijing anxious. The government was worried all of that capital abroad would do what Chinese businesses were concerned about in the first place: drain value from the domestic economy and depress the local currency. So through various means, the Chinese government clamped down on money leaving the country. That's what's called capital controls, and encouraged their firms to bring back some of the money they sent away. Beijing was particularly focused on China's four biggest private conglomerates: H&A Group, Anbang Insurance Group, Fosun International, and Dalian Wanda Group. Earlier I mentioned the purchase of the Waldorf Astoria in New York. That was made by Anbang, which had spent tens of billions of dollars around the world buying up high-profile properties. But in early 2018, China's government seized the company and even detained its chairman. That means China's government sort of owns the iconic New York staple. Then there's the Hainan Airlines, or H&A Group. The company began as a tiny airline in 1993, but today it's a global conglomerate, owning real estate, hotels, and tourism companies. In 2017, it was named the 170th biggest company in the world, with annual revenue of more than $50 billion. As part of its investment spree, H&A bought Radisson Hotels Group, a $6.5 billion stake in Hilton Hotels, and a stake in Deutsche Bank.
This building, 245 Park Avenue, was purchased by China's H&A Group for $2.2 billion in 2017, making it one of the priciest office building purchases in New York history. But a year later, H&A Group was said to be looking for a buyer.
Proof that China's effort to rein in these companies is working. Just look at these assets in the US either for sale or being sold by some of China's biggest companies. Meanwhile, the US is making it more difficult for foreign buyers to invest, adding more roadblocks, and in some cases even citing national security concerns. The US blocked a deal by Alibaba-backed Ant Financial to try and buy MoneyGram. Meanwhile, H&A Group dropped its bid to acquire hedge fund Skybridge Capital. Chinese investment in the US has leveled out to where it was before it surged earlier this decade, but whether it will fall further or make a comeback remains to be seen.
Hey guys, it's Upton. Thanks for watching. For more of our videos, check out what is China buying in Australia here, and why is Macau so rich here. We're also taking suggestions for future CNBC Explained, so leave your comments in the section below. And while you're at it, subscribe to our channel.
Many of the very people who ranted so hysterically about Russia were, even as they were doing it, even as they were yelling about Vladimir Putin, In fact, they were doing precisely what they claimed to decry. They were working on behalf of a foreign power, our chief global rival, the government of China. The Russia hoax effectively was a diversion. It hid something that is not a hoax at all, but it is real and threatening to all of us. We're going to spend the foreseeable future reporting on the relationship between America's political and financial elites and the communist government of China that has made many of them very rich. But we want to start tonight with the evidence, with a remarkable video. This video was recorded a little over a week ago, on November 28th. The man you're about to see speak is a professor from Beijing called Di Dongcheng. The video comes from an appearance that he made on a Chinese television show about Wall Street and international trade. Di Dongcheng works at Renmin University in Beijing. He is also, like so many in academia in China, a servant of his country's government. This video was deleted from Chinese social media soon after being uploaded, and there's a reason for that, as you'll see.
前边特朗普政府跟我们打贸易战，那么我们为什么搞不定特朗普政府？啊，为什么以前1992年到2016年之间，中美之间各种问题都能搞得定？是不是？大家发现没有？所有的危机，不管是银河号事件，还是炸大使馆，还是撞了飞机，所有事情全部是床头吵架床尾和，2个月之内搞定。什么原因？啊，这儿我抛出一个可能又要是暴论了，就是因为咱们上边有人，啊，就是我们在美国的权势核心圈啊，我们有我们的老朋友。
There's a lot of garbage floating around the internet right now, a lot of fake things. That video is real, and those subtitles are accurate. We checked today with 2 different Chinese speakers and confirmed that. What he just said, what you just read on the screen, tells the story. This is as close to a smoking gun as we have ever seen. Quote, "We have people at the top of America's core inner circle of power and influence." According to the man you just saw, that has been true for decades. So who are these people, and how many of them work in our media and in our government? Well, he didn't say precisely. At one point in the video, he described a Chinese agent working as a vice president at, quote, a top Wall Street financial institution. I can't say more, he explained, without making political trouble. Di Dongcheng did tell his audience that one agent in particular was especially useful, and he goes on at some length about her. He describes her as an American who's lived abroad for many years, who is now a Chinese citizen. And this seems to baffle him a little bit. The Chinese government doesn't allow dual citizenship. Why would they? Why would anyone? Di Dongcheng seems pleased that the U.S. government is foolish enough to allow it. He explains that this American agent, who lives at least part of the year in Beijing, helped the Chinese government with a propaganda operation in the city of Washington in 2015. And he goes on to describe that in some detail. The Obama administration was easy to manipulate, he suggests. They helped. The Chinese had many friends among the Obama people. The problem came when Donald Trump was elected. After that, he says, everything changed.
是呢，就过去这个30年啊，过去40年，我们在美国的他的这个利用他权势核心圈，是不是？我前面讲过，华尔街在1970年代开始对美国它的内政外交有非常强的影响力，啊，所以我们有路径依赖，是吧？但问题是，08年之后，华尔街的地位下降了。更重要的是，16年之后，华尔街搞不定特朗普，为什么？很尴尬。特朗普以前对华尔街有过一次软性违约，所以双方有矛盾啊。当然，这个细节我就不多说了，时间可能已经来不及了，是吧？那么，这个中美贸易战过程中，他们也试图帮忙啊。据我所知，美方的朋友跟我讲，这个试图帮忙，但是啊，力有不逮。
Since the 1970s, he said, and he's an economics professor, you should know, Wall Street has had enormous influence over the way the United States government operates, over American policy. The Chinese government, he says, has enormous influence on Wall Street. And that arrangement worked very well for a long time. Then Donald Trump unexpectedly was elected in 2016, and Wall Street was infuriated. Wall Street can't fix Trump, he said, but they tried. And this solves the mystery. If you're wondering why our political class has stood by and allowed the Chinese government to degrade this country and our way of life, why they've stood by as the Chinese government has flooded the United States with deadly opioids that have killed hundreds of thousands of people, or have stood by as the Chinese government ripped off billions in intellectual property from our companies. There's your answer. Earlier this year, the chairman of Harvard's chemistry department was arrested for taking $50,000 a month from the Communist Party of China in return for sending secrets and referring top scientists to Beijing. It barely rated as a scandal. You may not even be aware it happened. Why? Because so many are on the take, in effect. Donald Trump was an impediment to this very lucrative arrangement. And for that reason, Di Zhongsheng explains in the video, America's most powerful elites, and he calls them that, got to work on electing a new president. Again, read the words at the bottom of your screen as he speaks.
但现在呢？现在我们看到拜登上台了，传统的精英、政治精英啊，这个建制派，他们跟华尔街的关系是非常密切的。所以大家看到吧，拜登的儿子被特朗普说你在全球有什么基金公司，发现没有？谁帮他建的基金公司啊？明白吗？这个都有买卖啊。那么，所以这个时候啊，这个时候我们。
Oh, Donald Trump, he notes, because the Chinese do pay close attention to what we say here, Donald Trump has complained about Hunter Biden and his ties to the Chinese government. Those are real, he just confirms. So now you know why you weren't allowed to talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, why big business aligned as one, the tech companies and the rest, to suppress that story, because they were implicated in it. Back in October, we interviewed a man called Tony Bobulinski. We interviewed him because no one else would. Tony Bobulinski was a business partner of the Bidens. Here's what he told us about China.
And in a document that you guys have, and I think it's been provided to to the world, the Chinese referenced that because of their trust in the Biden family, that Chairman Yi and Director Zhang are excited about moving forward in this. And in that document, they referenced loaning $5 million to the BD family.
Right.
The BD family is the Biden family.
What are the implications of this going forward? If Joe Biden is elected president, which could very well happen, how does this constrain his ability to deal with China?
Are you asking for my personal opinion?
I am. I'm asking for your opinion as someone who's worked with the Chinese.
So I think Joe Biden and the Biden family are compromised.
I think Joe Biden and the Biden family are compromised with China. Looks like he was right about that, and it looks like the Bidens are far from the only ones who've been compromised. Gordon Chang has been covering this story for an awfully long time. He's a senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute. He's the author of The Great U.S.-China Tech War.
So what do we know?
A 2013 trip to China getting new attention this morning, not for what Joe Biden did, but for who he brought with him.
Politics was a family business. When Joe did well, the family did well. Hunter's small firm got a deal that no one else had in China.
Unknown to the press back then, Hunter Biden was forming a Chinese private equity fund.
Hunter Biden's small investment firm announced a $1 billion private equity deal with the Chinese government. China is America's chief rival on the global stage, and nobody should know that better than Joe Biden. But Joe Biden talks about China differently.
China is not our enemy.
Not a problem.
What are we worried about? Come on, man.
He doesn't see them as a threat. He welcomes their rise as a global power. Why exactly? Perhaps it's personal. Perhaps it's about his family. Perhaps it's about the money. But this isn't just another story about a politician's kid getting rich. Hunter's new firm started making investment deals that would serve the strategic interests of the Chinese military. This is the remarkable and largely hidden story of the secret financial relationship between the Biden family and the Chinese government. And it's a story that has been largely never told.